In our last part, Kang Geomma survived a brutal encounter with a demon commander and returned to the academy as a living legend. If you missed how he ended up as the successor to the Sword Emperor, make sure to click the card above to catch up before we jump into the conclusion. The memory of the battle still lingers in the subconscious. In a fractured dreamscape, the sky above the academy tears open, bleeding purple light. Space itself collapses under the weight of an overwhelming power, consuming Kang Geomma in a pillar of destruction. He wakes with a gasp, the phantom sensation of annihilation fading into the quiet hum of his dorm room. The nightmare is a stark reminder of the scale of forces he is now entangled with. Reality returns with the mundane buzz of a smartphone. Geomma checks his messages, only to find a new source of headache. The recruitment poster for their new club has been uploaded to the student network. It is a disaster of clashing colors and childish design, a piece of media guaranteed to make them the laughingstock of the campus. He sighs, realizing that surviving a war might have been easier than managing the social standing of this club. He rises and dresses, testing the movement of his body. He is fully healed. The recovery was swift, facilitated by the best medical care money could buy. The Sword Emperor, Siegfried, personally funded his VIP treatment. Geomma adjusts his tie, looking at his reflection. He feels a heady sense of debt to the old man. As he prepares to face the day, his mind drifts back to Avalon. He questions if his interference was the right choice. But the memory of his resolve pushes the doubt away. It is too late for regrets. Stepping out into the sunlight, the academy grounds are peaceful. He finds Ryojo Saki waiting in a corridor. He offers her a chocolate bar, his demeanor casual, as if he hadn't just returned from the grave. Saki tries to maintain her disblind-eyed, declining the snack and feigning indifference to his return. But the pretense shatters the moment he teases her. She snaps, demanding to know exactly what happened at Avalon. She frames her curiosity as the necessary due diligence of the club's strategist, but the desperation in her voice betrays her worry. Geomma deflects, showing her the disastrous recruitment poster on his phone. The shared cringe at the terrible design briefly unites them, grounding them in the trivial problems of student life before the heavier truths drop. Geomma leaves Saki to attend a summons. He enters a lavishly appointed office where the air is heavy with the scent of tea and serious politics. 2 figures await him. The Sword Emperor, Siegfried, and Medea, a high-ranking figure with sharp glasses and a sharper tongue. Medea remarks on Geomma's tea, making skills, offering a compliment wrapped in a slight regarding his appearance. But the pleasantries are merely a prelude. Medea addresses the report directly. She states that Geomma killed Igor, the 5th general of the demon army. Geomma listens, his expression unreadable. He admits the memory feels distant, like a dream, yet he cannot deny the outcome. Medea confirms it is the truth. The impossible has happened. A student has slain a general-level threat. Siegfried speaks, his voice grave. He apologizes for concealing the truth about Avalon Island, admitting he had no choice. He notes that the demons will have sensed the disturbance. The death of a general is not something the enemy will ignore. Medea predicts that this escalation will lead to a full-scale war within a few years, a conflict far worse than the one from 50 years ago. The conversation shifts to the consequences of the victory. Siegfried sits in his chair, his empty sleeve pinned to his side. He lost an arm in the battle. He announces that he can no longer fight on the front lines. He believes the Academy proposes to raise the next generation of heroes, and it is time he focused on that mission. He declares his intention to step down from his position in the 7 Stars, the highest echelon of humanity's defenders. Geomma is startled by the declaration. Medea reacts with fury, grabbing the old man by the collar. She demands to know how he can give up after 50 years of service just because of a missing arm. As the 2 powerful figures argue, Geomma watches silently. He reflects on his own role. For a long time, he tried to force the world to adhere to a script, panicking when events deviated from the original story he knew. But seeing the raw emotion and free will of the people before him, he realizes how selfish that perspective was. These are not characters in a game. They are people making difficult choices. He decides to accept the reality of the present, no matter how much it diverges from the canon. Medea releases Siegfried, her anger cooling into resignation. She asks if he is truly set on this path. Siegfried straightens his jacket. He has one final thing to say, a decision he solidified while Geomma was recovering. He turns his gaze to the student sitting across from him. The Sword Emperor does not intend to leave his seat empty. He looks Kang Geomma in the eye and delivers the verdict that will shatter the Academy's hierarchy. He intends to transfer his seat among the 7 Stars directly to Kang Geomma. The weight of the title, the authority, and the target on his back are about to be passed down. Geomma freezes, the magnitude of the offer hanging in the air. The aftermath of the Sword Emperor's declaration settles heavy in the room. Medea, having vented her initial fury, collapses back into her chair, the adrenaline replaced by a cold, pragmatic resignation. She chastises Siegfried, calling him a stupid old man, but her tone has shifted from combat to calculation. She realizes that resisting his decision is futile. The Sword Emperor has made his choice. However, Medea is a politician as much as she is an educator. She immediately begins outlining the conditions required to make this transition feasible. It is not something that can happen overnight. She insists on a buffer period. At least 1 year. During this time, they must gauge the reaction of the demon forces and carefully manage the press. But her most protective condition is directed at the student himself. She demands that Kang Geomma be allowed to enjoy his school life during this preparatory year. Placing the burden of a 7-star hero on a 17-year-old boy is a weight that could crush even a seasoned veteran, yet as she looks at the silent student, she internally concedes the truth. No one fits the role better. In her mind, Geomma is already a genius descended from the heavens, an anomaly whose feats have already placed one foot in the realm of legends. If the world knew what he was truly capable of, the uproar would be unmanageable. Siegfried accepts her terms with a laugh, his mood lightened now that the burden has been shared. But the conversation is far from over. Geomma, who has remained silent until now, requests a private moment with the Sword Emperor. As they stand in the corridor, bathed in the orange glow of the setting sun, Geomma asks the question that has plagued him since the announcement. He asks why the seats of the 7-star heroes have remained empty for so long. The public explanation has always been one of respect. That the seats were left vacant to honor the allies who sacrificed themselves to allow humanity to exist. Geomma challenges this logic. Leaving critical positions of power empty out of sentimentality seems like a fatal strategic error in a world constantly under threat. Siegfried's expression turns somber as he admits the truth. The public reason is a convenient lie. The reality is far harsher. They simply never found anyone worthy. The Sword Emperor explains the fundamental disparity between humans and demons. In the game world, Geomma remembers, the base statistics of demons were overwhelmingly superior to humans. Siegfried confirms this reality. If a full march of demons were to occur, humanity would face extinction within half a year. The 7-star heroes are not just figureheads of glory. They are the absolute deterrents. A hero with mediocre power is worse than no hero at all because their defeat would shatter humanity's hope. Siegfried elaborates that the title has unfortunately degraded over time. While meant to be a shield against extinction, it has been co-opted by political figures. He cites the Prime Minister of Japan, a relative of Ryujo, who uses the prestige of the position to maintain a 40-year dictatorship. This revelation clarifies for Geomma why his classmate, Ryujo, holds such deep disdain for the 7-star heroes. Geomma presses further, demanding to know why Siegfried chose him specifically. The Sword Emperor's answer is blunt and leaves no room for argument. He chose Geomma because Geomma is stronger than him. Not by a small margin, but significantly. Geomma attempts to deny this. He recalls his battle on Avalon Island, attributing his victory to a borrowed power he barely understands. A power that nearly killed him. He believes it was a fluke. But Siegfried cuts through his denial. The old man reveals that he knows about the limitations. He observed Geomma closely on the island and predicted that the boy would collapse after a minute of exerting that overwhelming force. He recognized the time limit immediately. Realizing he cannot hide the nature of his ability from such an experienced master, Geomma decides to reveal a partial truth. He explains his power as a transaction, activating a blessing that inflicts immense pain, which he then nullifies with a second blessing to remain functional. He frames it as a dangerous balancing act. Siegfried is not dissuaded. He is impressed. He views the strategy of using one blessing to suppress the cost of another as a revolutionary concept. He praises Geomma's talent but offers a critical piece of advice. Fighting on a timer is a fatal flaw that cannot be relied upon forever. To overcome this, Geomma needs an experienced master. In that hallway, Siegfried clarifies his intention. He is not just passing on a title. He is taking a disciple. He declares that while he is retiring from the front lines, he refuses to stagnate. He will teach Geomma how to wield his power properly. Before leaving, Siegfried hands Geomma a black strip of cloth, a gift passed along from Abel von Nibelung. The Sword Emperor departs with a laugh, leaving Geomma standing alone, stunned by the realization that he has just been drafted as the successor and student of the strongest swordsman in the world. He mutters to himself that he will talk Siegfried out of it later, but the path seems set. Later that night, the consequences of the day follow Geomma into sleep. He finds himself back in the recurring nightmare. A digital red void where a colossal sword of light descends from the sky to obliterate him. Usually, this dream ends in destruction or forced wakefulness, but tonight, Geomma's mindset has changed. Siegfried's words about accepting power echo in his mind. Instead of cowering or fleeing, Geomma looks up at the descending annihilation. He decides to stop running. If the power is trying to consume him, he determines he will take it for himself. He reaches out. His hand grasps the massive blade of light. The impact is instantaneous. White-hot agony tears through his consciousness, threatening to erase his existence. He screams as the energy floods his system, but he holds on. He refuses to die in a dream. The blinding light recedes. Geomma stands in the void, breathing heavily. His shirt is gone, and his body is now marked with glowing blue lines of energy, tracing the pathways of his veins like a circuit board. The overwhelming pressure has stabilized. He has integrated the force that once sought to destroy him. Suddenly, the silence of the void is broken. A voice speaks from behind him, casual and familiar, as if greeting an old friend. Geomma turns. Standing in the digital expanse is a glowing white silhouette of a man. The figure radiates an authority that transcends the system of the world. Geomma recognizes the entity immediately, his eyes widening in shock. It is the Game Master. The entity responsible for the rules of this reality has finally appeared before him, marking the end of Geomma's isolation and the beginning of a confrontation with the architect of this world. In the digital void, the confrontation stabilizes. The glowing white entity stands before Kang Geomma, radiating a pressure that bends the surrounding space. Geomma identifies this being as the Game Master, the architect of the system. However, the entity corrects him with a casual tone. He's not the Game Master. He waves his hand, transforming the abstract digital grid into a familiar setting, a tiled kitchen. The entity explains the confusion. He states that while he could be the Game Master, or the Game Master could be him, the hierarchy is specific. It is the other way around. He is the source of the power Geomma currently wields. He introduces himself not as a mere administrator, but as a calamity, nature, space, and God. Specifically, he is the Sword God. The Sword God clarifies that he is not a deity in the religious sense, but a conceptual existence. He has appeared now because his restraints were recently released. A system notification confirms this, announcing that the blessing of the Sword God is active. However, the entity's form begins to fracture, glitching like a corrupted file. He warns Geomma that while his current ability to slash and dice is acceptable, he must not be rash with this power. Before Geomma can extract more answers about the nature of this world, the entity shatters, leaving only a lingering resonance. Geomma awakens in his dorm room, sweat drenching his shirt. A blue holographic window floats before him. Synchronization has jumped to 1.3%. He immediately grabs a notebook, scribbling down the keywords Sword God and dim before the fading dream memories vanish completely. He notes that despite the rapid increase in synchronization, his body and mind remain stable. For now, he must continue gathering clues in the waking world. The following morning brings a return to Academy reality. Geomma's phone buzzes with notifications. His newly formed club has received 52 applications. At a local cafe, Geomma meets with his club executives, including Hisali Ryujisaki. Despite the casual setting, Geomma remains on high alert. He suspects that following the recent dungeon incident and the involvement of hostile instructors, these new applicants could be spies sent to assassinate him. A new applicant arrives. A girl with short green hair and glasses enters the cave. Geomma observes her instantly. She appears unremarkable, almost generic. Yet something about her triggers a sense of familiarity. She introduces herself as San Hana, a second-year student from the ordinary class. She claims to be from Bizen. Geomma notes the family name San is unheard of, much like his own fabricated lineage, Kang of the Siri region. Saki takes the lead in the interrogation, questioning Hana's motives. Hana claims she wants to join the travel club to clear dungeons and improve her failing grades. When asked about her weapon, she hesitates before answering that she uses her fists. Saki is skeptical, but Geomma activates his sensory perception. He searches for malice or deception but finds a strange consistency in her behavior. He decides to accept her. The moment her acceptance is confirmed, Hana's demeanor shifts instantly. She drops the polite honor fix, revealing a casual, almost arrogant attitude suited to her seniority as a second-year student. She signs the paperwork quickly, noting with amusement that the club's chaperone is the principal herself. As she leaves, she tells them to call her next week. Geomma watches her go, his suspicion deepening. He asks Saki if Hana reminded her of anyone, but Saki dismisses it. His phone vibrates again. It is a text from the principal, expecting information regarding the club with a new member. Geomma opens the attached file, his eyes widen in shock. The file on the screen is a student record for Kang Geomma. Under the fields for family history and date of birth, the entry reads simply, empty. The Academy's highest authority is aware of his non-existent past. The digital file on the screen confirms what Kang Geomma had begun to suspect. His past has not merely been hidden, it has been erased. The fields for his parents and relatives display a hollow void. He attempts to bridge the gap, dealing the number for his parents that has been etched into his memory for a lifetime. The response is a cold, mechanical voice stating the number does not exist. As he walks through the Academy grounds under the falling rain, Geomma checks his phone gallery. A photograph of his previous life, proof of his existence outside this world, begins to distort. Pixels bleed into static and the faces of those he once knew fade into nothingness. The erasure is active and aggressive. The system, or perhaps the entity known as the Blade God, is systematically severing his ties to reality to force his complete adaptation to this world. Sitting alone on a bench, Geomma manifests the spectral aura of a blade. He recognizes this as a designed board, a game set up by a higher power. Instead of despair, a cold resolve settles in his eyes. He accepts the solitude, promising that someday he will shatter the board itself. Elsewhere in the library, the mood is far less existential but equally turbulent. Rachel Demurat is in the throes of a crisis of confidence. Despite her high status and undeniable beauty herself, esteem has plummeted. She fishes for compliments from Abel von Nabelon, awkwardly comparing their figures and questioning why she feels like a failure. The conversation inevitably drifts toward the source of their shared frustration. Kang Geomma. Abel reveals that she, too, attempted to join Geomma's new club, only to be flatly rejected. Geomma's reasoning was pragmatic and blunt. Accepting a member of the Saint class would bring burdensome attention. He desires efficiency, not prestige. Later, seeking to soothe their bruised egos with caffeine, Rachel and Abel spot a familiar figure through the window of a cave. Inside, Geomma sits with his club members, looking uncharacteristically relaxed. Seeing him smile and interact normally with others sends a spike of irritation through Abel. She watches intently, her gaze lingering on the unassuming bespectacled girl, Pana, whom Geomma has seemingly accepted over the academy's elite. As evening falls, the scene shifts to a commercial district. Geomma, accompanied by Saki and the redhead student Weapon, arrives at a high-end establishment named Korea Sushi. They are joined by a female student from the auditor family, expecting a quiet dinner. However, the atmosphere shifts the moment they enter. The staff greets them, and Geomma's eyes narrow. The waiter bowing before them is none other than Max, the heir to the auditor assassination clan. The absurdity of a wealthy noble working a part-time service job is baffling, but the situation worsens when the restaurant owner berates Knox for a minor mistake. Knox, trained to kill from the shadows, bows his head and apologizes submissively. Geomma observes this strange dynamic but adheres to his rule of avoiding unnecessary trouble, choosing to take his seat without acknowledging Knox's secret. The menu is exorbitantly priced, charging 400,000 won for a set of 11 pieces. Saki balks at the cost, but the auditor daughter insists on treating them. When the food arrives, the presentation is flawless, the ingredients visibly fresh. The group begins to eat, enjoying the high-quality meal. However, Geomma's expression darkens after a single bite. He places his chopsticks down. The problem is not the flavor, but the violence inflicted upon the ingredients. To a master of the blade, the sushi reveals the chef's incompetence. The cuts are ragged, destroying the texture and insulting the life of the fish. Geomma states calmly that while the ingredients are good, the knife skills are weeping. Knox, eavesdropping nearby, turns pale. He knows that the head chef prides himself on his technique above all else. The owner, a large Western man with a scarred face, overhears the critique. He storms over to the table, looming over the students. He demands to know what Geomma just said. Geomma does not retreat. He looks the chef in the eye and repeats his assessment. The technique isn't sufficient to command such a price. Incensed, the chef slams a hand onto the table. If the student believes his judgment is so superior, he must prove it. He challenges Geomma to step into the kitchen and demonstrate his own skill personally. The restaurant falls silent as the academy's hidden sword master stands up, accepting the challenge to wield a knife in a very different kind of arena. The head chef's pride has been wounded. In the culinary world, much like the world of swordsmanship, a challenge issued publicly cannot be ignored. The owner looms over the table, his face twisted in disbelief that a mere student would dare criticize his craft. He demands immediate proof. The silence in the restaurant is heavy as the other students watch, unsure if this is arrogance or confidence. Knox, realizing the gravity of the situation, tries to intervene. He knows the chef's reputation and the price of the ingredients involved, but the momentum of the confrontation has already passed the point of return. The chef, seeking to humble the arrogant youth, changes the terms. He swaps the initial flounder for a red snapper. It is an expensive, difficult fish to handle, a choice made specifically to embarrass a novice. He assumes Geomma is merely showing off for his friends. Geomma steps into the kitchen. He does not offer rebuttals or excuses. He simply accepts the knife. For him, the environment has changed, but the essence remains the same. Whether it is a demonic beast or a high-quality ingredient, the blade must find the path of least resistance. The atmosphere around Geomma shifts. He activates his technique, the blessing of the sword god. The movement of his hand is a blur, precise and efficient. He does not butcher the fish. He dismantles it with a reverence that preserves the texture and life of the meat. In moments, the sushi is plated. The chef stares at the result. The visual perfection is undeniable, but the taste is the final arbiter. He takes a piece. The moment he chews, his legs give way. He collapses to the floor. Not in anger, but in the crushing weight of total defeat. In his 12 years of wielding a knife, he has never encountered such perfection. The hierarchy of the kitchen is instantly rewritten. The chef, previously the tyrant of his domain, is now begging on his knees to be accepted as a disciple. Geomma, uncomfortable with the sudden worship, refuses the title of master but offers a correction. He points out a fundamental flaw in the chef's posture. The man is left-handed but uses a blade designed for a right-handed grip, forcing him to use excessive power which crushes the fish's fibers. It is a simple observation, yet one the chef had missed for years. Geomma reminds the man of their wager. The meal is free. But since he has taken over the kitchen, Geomma decides to complete the service himself. For 50 seconds, he prepares 3 fish, finding a strange sense of peace in the rhythmic work. Unlike the chaotic battlefield, the cutting board offers immediate, clean results. Seeing their club president working, the other students cannot simply sit and eat. Nox and the others join the service, turning the high-tension punishment into a strange moment of camaraderie. For a brief time, the elite students of the academy act as common servers. Later, during a break, Nox approaches Geomma on the terrace. The redhead admits that while he complained, there is merit to honest labor. But the conversation quickly turns to more serious matters. Nox reveals that the audit into Geomma's background has concluded. The investigation squad, the auditors, found nothing suspicious. Consequently, the elders' request to target Geomma has been cancelled. The hunters have now turned their gaze inward, investigating the Council of Elders instead. Geomma makes a decision. He informs Nox that he will participate in the upcoming investigation mission personally. It is a strategic move, placing him within the mechanism of justice rather than remaining a passive observer. Nox is relieved, and the tension that once existed between the rival houses seems to dissipate further as they shake hands. Before parting, Nox brings up another anomaly in their class. He mentions a student named Sanhana. She is quiet, isolated, and notably average. Nox points out that maintaining a perfect middle ranking in every single metric, seemingly without effort, is statistically impossible. It suggests she is intentionally hiding her true capabilities. As the restaurant closes, the head chef stops Geomma. He presents a long rectangular box. Inside is a blade of exceptional quality. The chef admits that after witnessing Geomma's skill, he realizes this knife does not belong in his own hands. He passes the tool to the one who can draw out its true potential. Geomma inspects the weapon. It is crafted more like a sword than a kitchen tool. The chef suggests a flashing aim, but Geomma ignores it. As he holds the blade, he feels a resonance with his own lineage. He names the blade Everfrost. Elsewhere, under the cover of night, a different kind of gathering takes place. A group of students and thugs stands in a dark alley. A hooded figure approaches them. He introduces himself simply as the professor. The shadows lengthen, and the academy's peace seems fragile as the next threat prepares to make its move. In the dimly lit interior of an abandoned industrial facility, a clandestine meeting takes place. A group of rogue elements stands before a hooded figure whose presence dominates the room despite his casual demeanor. The leader of the thugs, a hulking brute with skin like stone, demands to know why they have been summoned, his patience wearing thin. He questions if the hooded figure understands who he is dealing with, boasting of the power he now wields. The hooded figure merely laughs, a chilling sound that echoes through the empty space. He mocks the brute, noting that the man is drunk on borrowed strength. Enraged, the brute unleashes his power, the ground cracking beneath him as magma erupts from his skin. The hooded figure observes the attack with clinical detachment, deducing that the brute serves the fourth general, Permersh, based on the rarity of the earth attribute magic being displayed. As the brute charges, claiming his hands feel dry, the hooded figure decides to offer a grim solution. In a blur of motion too fast for the thugs to track, the figure evades the earth magic and closes the distance. With a single, decisive strike, the brute is obliterated. Blood splatters across the floor as the hooded figure stands over the remains, coldly stating that such power was wasted on the unworthy. The remaining observers, a white-haired woman and her subordinates, watch in stunned silence. The hooded figure turns to them, signaling that the demonstration is over. The white-haired woman approaches, not with fear, but with recognition. She reveals the hooded figure's face. Beneath the cowl lies a woman with piercing purple eyes and a distinctive violet streak in her hair. She is the mysterious female instructor, an agent of chaos embedded within the academy. She addresses her subordinates, correcting a rumor that has been circulating regarding the death of the villain Igor. She clarifies that Igor did not fall to the legendary Sword Emperor. Instead, Igor was killed by a single student. However, rather than revealing the truth about Kang Geomma, she attributes the feat to Leon van Reinhardt, labeling him the next hero. The narrative of the academy is being rewritten, placing a target on Leon's back while Geomma remains in the shadows. Meanwhile, oblivious to the schemes in the dark, Kang Geomma sits in the academy cafeteria, meticulously organizing his thoughts in a notebook. He reviews the current political landscape, checking off known variables. He analyzes the Council of Elders, the pinnacle of noble greed. He notes that their reckless attempt to order the assassination of a student without justification has backfired. By treating the auditors, the premier assassin family, as mere pawns, the elders have created a powerful enemy. Geomma realizes that this internal conflict benefits him. The auditors will now target the elders, creating a chaotic environment where his own movements might go unnoticed. However, he recognizes that he is in a similar position to Leon van Reinhardt, a variable that the powers that be wish to eliminate. His thoughts shift to the mysterious female instructor. Based on information gleaned from Igor before his death, Geomma knows she has a contract related to her complaining nature. He writes down the keywords: purple hair, wines, and two-faced. He recalls from his knowledge of the game that while villains can alter their appearance, they cannot change their biological sex or the color of their eyes. This gives him a slim chance of identifying her, but he acknowledges his limitations. The sensing abilities of the sword god's blessing are not omnipotent, and he lacks fundamental knowledge of magic. He briefly considers learning magic to bridge this gap but realizes his academic habits are non-existent. Deciding that a direct approach is impossible, Geomma resolves to try an unexpected angle of attack, planning a visit to Professor Dayan. His train of thought is interrupted by the arrival of his clubmates. Ryujo, Saki and Weapon enter the cafeteria, arguing loudly. Weapon scolds Saki for getting excited over small details, while Saki reprimands him for his lack of decorum. Weapon turns to Geomma and asks if he knows what day is approaching. Geomma, momentarily lapsing into his former life's memories, wonders if it is his birthday. Weapon corrects him immediately. The approaching date is July 7th, the anniversary of the day the legendary Balor Joalkin sealed the demon Lycan. It is the day of the Academy Festival. Weapon enthusiastically lists the VIP guests who will be attending the festival. The lineup includes the strongest assassin, known as the Old Man of the Mountain, Altair Idor, the heir to the Iron King family, Mao Lan, and the American prodigy known as All-Mute. These are figures who stand at the apex of the world's power hierarchy, and they will be gathering within the academy walls. Saki tries to steer the conversation back to club activities, suggesting they complete some work to keep the principal happy. Weapon dismisses this, admitting he just wants to enjoy the festival. Turning to Geomma, he asks for the ace member's opinion. A female club member shyly asks Geomma if he has plans, to which he replies in the negative. Seizing the opportunity, Weapon slams his hand on the table and proposes a plan. A tasting booth. He argues that since Geomma is a master with a knife, it would be the perfect way to advertise the club. The air in the cafeteria instantly grows heavy. Dark, ominous energy begins to radiate from Saki. She views the suggestion as an insult to Geomma's martial dignity. In her eyes, using his transcendent blade skills for chopping vegetables at a food stall is a vulgar display of power. She glares at Geomma, silently daring him to agree to such a triviality. Geomma, sensing the murderous intent, realizes he needs to defuse the situation to save Weapon's life. He agrees with Weapon, stating the idea sounds good. Saki is shocked, unable to comprehend why a warrior of his caliber would stoop to such antics. Then, Geomma makes a critical error. In an attempt to justify enjoying the festival, he mutters that they might not have much time to enjoy such things in the future. The atmosphere shifts from tense to freezing. Saki's eyes glow with a piercing blue light. She locks onto Geomma's words, demanding to know what he means. Geomma freezes, realizing he is unconscious. The reference the Second Human-Demon War, a catastrophic event scheduled to occur in 3 years according to the game's timeline. He has become too comfortable around them, and his guard has slipped. Saki leans in, her suspicion palpable. She asks if he is privy to information others do not possess, referencing a previous incident where his foresight seems supernatural. Weapon and the other member watch nervously, sensing that the conversation has ventured into dangerous territory. Desperate to break the tension, Weapon volunteers to make the promotional poster himself. He frantically sketches a crude design, trying to distract Saki. The distraction works partially, but the dynamic of the group has shifted. Saki stands up, her demeanor shifting from suspicion to challenge. She declares that the club has too many sailors steering the ship. She proposes a way to settle the hierarchy and the festival plans once and for all. Outside the cafeteria, under the setting sun, Saki draws her weapon. She challenges Weapon to a duel. If he wins, she will seize her complaints and go along with his festival plan. If she wins, she takes control. Weapon accepts the challenge with a grin, warning her not to regret it. Geomma watches from the sidelines, relieved that the scrutiny has shifted away from his slip of the tongue, but aware that the peace he seeks is becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. The festival approaches, bringing with it heroes, villains, and the inevitable consequences of power. The duel to determine the hierarchy of the travel club begins not with a conversation, but with a fundamental miscalculation by Weapon. Standing in the dojo, Weapon, who utilizes a flute as a conduit for his magic, watches Saki Ryojo. He operates under the standard academy assumption. Saki is known as a longbow user. In the strategic calculus of a duel, a longbow user requires distance. Therefore, Weapon prepares to counter a ranged fighter, confident that he can deflect projectiles or debuff her before she becomes a threat. However, Weapon fails to account for the versatility required of those who associate with Kang Geomma. As the signal to start is given, Saki does not retreat to draw a bowstring. Instead, she manifests a long crimson blade and accelerates instantly. The gap between them vanishes in a single breath. Weapon, his flute raised to cast a debuff, freezes. His internal monologue betrays his panic. A bow user charging into melee range contradicts the established rules of engagement he relies upon. By the time he attempts to adjust his strategy, realizing that distance is no longer his ally, the outcome is already decided. Saki closes in, her blade descending before Weapon can complete his spell. The strike is decisive. It is a physical refutation of his leadership. Weapon collapses, defeated not just by speed, but by his inability to adapt to the unexpected. As he lies on the floorboards, a healing artifact taking his health back up point by point, Saki stands over him. Her question is rhetorical. She asks if he is finished judging them. The hierarchy is settled. The helm of the ship has been seized. With 4 days remaining until the festival, the atmosphere in the club room shifts from debate to labor. The defeated weapon, now relegated to the role of operations and general affairs, finds himself buried under the logistics of booth rentals and table setups. He complains about the workload, his pride bruised, but Saki, now eating at the head table, silences him. The loser complies with the winner. The chain of command is absolute. While the others focus on the tangible preparations, Chloe perfecting the heart-shaped fried eggs, Sanhana managing the ingredient orders for the kimchi stew. Geomma retreats into his own thoughts. He observes the activity with a detached focus. He identifies a critical flaw in their operational plan. The buff skill, the core gimmick of their restaurant, lasts only 50 seconds. For a festival that spans a full day, this duration is insufficient for a sustainable service. Geomma's mind drifts further back, past the academy, to his life before this reincarnation. He recalls working in kitchens since the age of 17, a life of relentless labor where festivals were merely days of increased workload rather than celebration. He remembers the mobile game, Miracle Blessing, which this world is based on. He had played it seeking a distraction, a simulation of a normal life he never had. Now, living inside that reality, he understands the cruel irony. He sought normalcy. But the timeline suggests that peace is expiring. He recalls that around the second year, the demons begin to take notice of Leon van Reinhardt. This festival might be the last moment of calm before the true conflict begins. Sanhana interrupts his introspection. She is sharp, noticing the melancholic cast to his expression. She asks what he is thinking, probing for the vulnerabilities he usually conceals. She brings up the statement he made when he first joined the club, trying to pin down his true motivations. Geomma, consistent with his nature, deflects. He feigns ignorance, telling her to forget it if she cannot remember. He excuses himself from the room, leaving the logistical burden to the others. He has a loose end to tie up regarding the nature of the power they are selling. Geomma arrives at the office of a green-haired instructor, a professor known for his eccentric research. The professor welcomes him warmly, brewing Russian black tea. Geomma declines the drink, citing a fabricated allergy to maintain his professional distance. He is here for information, not socialization. The professor, eager to engage a student of Geomma's caliber, reveals a stone sample pulsing with mana, offering it as a gift. Geomma refuses this as well. The conversation turns to the question Geomma had asked previously regarding the phrase, "May the blessing of God be with you." The professor has done his research, traveling as far as Russia to retrieve an ancient text. He explains the academic classification of blessings, categorizing them into arch-spirits, guardian spirits, elemental spirits, and soul spirits. He reminds Geomma of the cadet's own cynical observation, that there are no gods left in this world. The professor confirms this, but adds a layer of history that recontextualizes the world's theology. He speaks of the mythic age. In that era, gods were not spirits or entities with minds and bodies. They were absolute concepts, beings of pure law and reality. However, even concepts can be severed. The professor reveals that one entity brought the mythic age to an end. It was the god of the sword. The phrase used by the church is not a benevolent wish, but a remnant of an ancient prayer used by humans to revere the god of the sword and plea for power. Geomma leaves the office, the history lesson settling in his mind. He feels he has gained insight, yet the practical application remains elusive. Walking through the corridor, he realizes why he felt suffocated earlier. It was not just the weight of the future or the history of dead gods. It was a physical absence. He had left his sashimi knife behind. For 20 years, that blade has been an extension of his arm, a high-tech sensor that connects him to the world. Without it, his sensory range is diminished, and he feels closed off. He acknowledges that he has fundamentally changed. He is no longer just a man, but a weapon that requires its edge. The countdown to the festival accelerates. 4 days become 3. The club members wrestle with balloons and wind. 3 days become 2. They finalize the costume designs. 2 days become 1. The cooking trials are completed. On the day of the festival, Geomma stands before their booth. He reflects on his strange compulsion. In his previous life he often worked for free to revive collapsing restaurants. Not out of charity, but for the satisfaction of seeing a dead business breathe again. He admits to himself that this is his own form of romance, a belated adolescent rebellion manifesting as a desire to fix what is broken with a single knife. 10 minutes remain until opening. The team is dressed in their service uniforms. Weapon, Saki, Rachel, and Chloe stand ready, tension radiating from them. Geomma looks at them, his expression unreadable but his resolve firm. He acknowledges the foreshadowing he felt earlier. If this is to be their last festival before the world descends into chaos, then the only logical course of action is to execute their plan perfectly. As the gates open and the crowds flood in, a purple-haired woman moves among the visitors, her smile carrying an edge that suggests she too is a stranger to innocent celebration. The peace of the academy is about to be tested. But for now, the kitchen is open. The Joaquin Grand Festival begins, transforming the academy from a rigorous training ground into a vibrant spectacle of color and commerce. While the crowds lose themselves in the celebration, those with high status navigate the grounds in disguise. Saki and Rachel, done in crude fake mustaches, attempt to blend in, believing their anonymity is secure. They drift toward a specific booth, drawn by a flyer advertising kimchi stew prepared by a master. Inside the booth, the atmosphere is chaotic. While Kang Geomma focuses on the precision of his cooking, his staff is less disciplined. Weapon has abandoned his duties, captivated by the arrival of international celebrities. The festival stage hosts the world's rising stars, Mahatma Singh of India and Vladimir Yazov of Russia. However, the crowd's true adoration is reserved for Queen Elizabeth, the American hero known as All Mute. Weapon, usually proud and combat focused, is reduced to a blushing fanboy, crumpling the promotional flyers he was meant to distribute. Ryoja Saki has to physically drag him back to reality, though his mind remains fixated on the stage. Geomma observes the commotion with detached cynicism. He watches Queen Elizabeth, a candidate for the prestigious 7-star position, and reflects on the nature of heroism in this world. To him, the American system represents the commodification of power, where heroes are managed like corporate assets and brand recognition matters more than ideals. He finds the concept repulsive. He is grateful his reincarnation placed him here rather than in a system that would demand he wear tight costumes and perform for cameras. His plan is simple: stay inside the booth, serve stew for 3 days, and avoid any interaction with the sword master's designated successor, Queen Elizabeth. Saki and Rachel finally arrive at the booth, their disguise is doing little to fool Geomma. He welcomes them with a wary resignation, serving them the stew he has meticulously prepared. Despite Rachel's initial protests that they should be studying for finals, the quality of the food silences her. The booth momentarily finds a rhythm, with Geomma cooking and Ryoja serving, until the air in the tent shifts. A heavy presence descends upon the dining area. A woman with purple hair enters, followed by a retinue of bodyguards. She remarks that the place reeks, her voice carrying an arrogance that cuts through the festive noise. Geomma recognizes her immediately. It is Mao Rang, the sister of the notorious Mao twins he previously dismantled. The atmosphere tightens instantly. Chloe, sensing the threat, instinctively raises a knife, but Geomma signals for her to stand down. He identifies the equipment Mao Rang is wearing. This rank weapon known as Storm Kick. She has not come for a casual visit. She is dressed for war. Geomma assumes this is a vendetta, a retaliation for the injuries he inflicted on her brothers. He prepares himself for the inevitable violence, telling his friends not to interfere. Mao Rang takes a seat, treating the humble booth like a throne room. She admits she came to see the student who destroyed her brothers, but her tone shifts unexpectedly. She does not attack. Instead, she laughs. She reveals that she is actually grateful. Her brothers were impulsive liabilities who stained the family name. By crushing them, Geomma removed obstacles from her own path to power. She explains that she aims for a 7-star position, rivaling Queen Elizabeth, and her brother's incompetence was holding her back. Geomma analyzes her cold pragmatism. She is a political creature willing to discard her own kin for advancement. He accepts the twisted gratitude but has no interest in her ambitions. He asks her to leave if her business is concluded. Mao Rang stands to go, agreeing that he is more reasonable than her siblings. However, as she turns, she decides to leave a parting remark. She sneers at the food, mocking Geomma for opening a booth serving her culture's pache. The air around Geomma freezes. Throughout the conversation, he had remained calm, willing to let a dangerous rival walk away to preserve his low profile. He had tolerated her arrogance and her intrusion. But the deliberate misnaming of his dish, a cultural insult directed at the kimchi he has perfected over a lifetime, crosses a line that professional prudence cannot secure. Geomma's eyes darken. The desire to remain unnoticed evaporates, replaced by the cold, professional intent of a master chef whose craft has been slandered. He removes his apron and steps out from behind the counter. He commands Mao Rang to follow him. He tells her there is something he cannot let go. The time for avoiding attention has passed. Now, he intends to cut her down. The news spreads through the academy corridors with the speed of a wildfire. A subspace duel has been authorized. The combatants are the notorious Iron Leg Moring, a figure of immense status, and the enigmatic cadet who recently clashed with Adador. Students rush toward the arena, desperate to witness the spectacle. They anticipate a brutal unilateral beating, expecting Moring to crush an arrogant upstart who dared to offend her. They are unaware that the man walking into the arena, Kang Geomma, has not stepped forward for glory or recognition. He has stepped forward because a line was crossed regarding the classification of fermented vegetables. Inside the arena, the atmosphere is heavy. Morin wastes no time. She launches her assault immediately, her body blurring into motion as she unleashes her signature storm kick. To the uninitiated, her momentum appears unstoppable. She is a storm of violence, her strikes aimed with lethal precision. Geomma stands his ground. In his hand is not a greatsword or a spear, but the slender, unassuming blade of a sashimi knife. The collision of metal and ore rings out. Moring's eyes widen. Her kick, heavy enough to shatter stone, is halted by a strip of steel no wider than a finger. She questions the physics of the interaction. A blade that thin should have snapped. A wrist that still should have shattered. Yet, Geomma remains immovable. His expression is placid as a still lake. Moran refuses to accept this reality. She accelerates, her movements becoming a blur of purple aura. She targets his blind spots, predicting his reactions, aiming to overwhelm his senses with sheer speed. She believes that if she can just increase the tempo, his defense will crack. She screams internally, her mind flashing back to her own struggles for power. She is the iron leg. She has clawed her way to this position. She cannot lose to a nameless chef. She activates her advanced technique, the Heavenly Crown. Her aura flares, condensing into a tangible force. She is no longer testing him. She is trying to destroy him. Amidst the lethal exchange, Moran finds the breath to speak. Her arrogance has not yet been fully dismantled. She looks at the man effortlessly parrying her death blows and sees a potential asset. She offers him a proposition. He is skilled enough to be her male concubine. She frames it as a reward, a way for him to marry into her power later. Geomma does not break his rhythm. His reply is cut with the same precision as his blade. He tells her she is clueless. He did not come here to be recruited. He admits that he utilized her arrogance, allowing her to provoke him so that he would have the justification to subdue her completely. Moran falters. For the first time, she realizes she is not the predator in this cage. She attempts to regain control with a gale wind kick, followed by storm kick wheel. The attacks tear up the arena floor, creating a smoke screen of debris. She assumes he is hiding in the smoke, but when the dust clears, the reality of her situation crashes down upon her. The atmosphere in the arena has shifted. It is no longer just a physical space. The very laws of the surroundings feel rewritten. Moran freezes. She recognizes this sensation. It is a martial realm reached only by supreme masters. It is the realm of the mind. In the academy, only the 7-star level fighters or the head of the Editor family, Altair, can control a domain of this magnitude. It is a power that overrides reality itself. Moran stares at Geomma. The realization strikes her with the force of a physical blow. He has deployed a mental domain, yet he has disguised it as a standard subspace barrier. The implications terrify her. If he had used this power openly, it would have been an international incident, revealing him as the official successor chosen by the Sword Emperor. By masking it, he has achieved two things. He has secured his victory without political fallout, and he has spared her the public humiliation of being crushed by a legend. She looks at him now not with contempt, but with a mixture of envy, jealousy, fear, and finally awe. The gap between them is not a wall, it is a dimension. She realizes she is fighting the next 7-star master. The fight ends in an instant. Geomma moves through her final defense. The system voice echoes through the silence. The winner of the subspace duel is Kang Geomma of Joaquin Academy. Moran collapses, defeated. The star of the continent has fallen. Back at the food booth, the staff barely reacts to the news. Ryojo smiles, continuing her work. She knew they would return soon. For the rest of the academy, a hierarchy has been shattered. For Kang Geomma, the distraction is over, and it is time to return to the kitchen. In the aftermath of the duel, the atmosphere outside the subspace remains heavy with the residue of a shattered hierarchy. Rachel de Muret walks away from the scene, her usual composure fractured by what she has just witnessed. Her companion, oblivious to the depth of the shift that has just occurred, attempts to tease her about her appetite, but the jest falls flat. Rachel is no longer focused on the festival or the food. Her attention is entirely consumed by the realization that the power dynamic of the academy has been fundamentally rewritten. Elsewhere, in the stone corridors away from the prying eyes of the crowd, the defeated star of the mainland struggles to remain upright. Mao Lan, supported by her bodyguard, leans heavily against the wall. The physical injuries from the subspace do not transfer to reality, but the psychological impact is absolute. She attempts to rationalize the impossible defeat. To lose to a 17-year-old trainee should be a stain on her reputation that can never be washed away. However, she begins to reconstruct the narrative in her mind to salvage her pride. She tells herself that Kang Geomma is not merely a student, but an anomaly with infinite potential. By framing him as a future legend, her defeat becomes a historical footnote rather than a humiliation. She convinces herself that when he inevitably ascends to the peak of the world, people will praise her for holding her ground against him in his youth. Her bodyguard remains skeptical, unable to comprehend how a mere trainee could warrant such high praise from a figure as dominant as Mao Lan. Mao Lan silences him. She has seen the truth that others cannot yet perceive. She compares the boy to the greatest geniuses she has ever known, including the 7-star heroes. In her estimation, Kang Geomma is not just a genius. He is a monster walking a path that ordinary effort can never reach. She recognized the nature of his strike. It was not just skill, it was a domain. The secret does not remain kept for long. The digital network of the academy and the mainland erupts. Footage of the duel spreads with viral intensity. The headlines are sensational, proclaiming the fall of the star of the mainland at the hands of a rookie. The views climb into the millions within moments. The public, always hungry for new idol, lashes onto the weapon that decided the duel. They grant him a title that spreads across the feeds like wildfire, the Sashimi Sword Saint. Back at the cooking booth, the protagonist is forced to confront the absurdity of his new reality. The line for the stew stretches endlessly, a chaotic mix of hungry customers and gawkers hoping to catch a glimpse of the new celebrity. The crowd is deafening. A reporter attempts to force his way into the kitchen, demanding an interview for just 15 seconds. Ryujo Saki, protective and efficient, intervenes immediately. She threatens the intruder with digital retaliation, forcing him back, but she is not above capitalizing on the moment herself. She snaps a photo of Geomma working and uploads it, tagging it with the very title that makes him cringe. Kang Geomma stares at the screen. The title of Sword Saint is not merely embarrassing. It is historically incorrect. In the timeline he knows, the title of Sword Saint is a legendary honor reserved for the Sword Emperor, a figure who appears much later in history. For it to emerge now, attached to the word sashimi, feels like a cosmic joke. Yet, the world does not care for his internal logic. The demand for his cooking only intensifies. The kitchen reaches its breaking point. The club members are exhausted. Chloe, fatigue setting in, mishandles her knife and suffers a small cut on her finger. It is a minor injury, but for Geomma, it is a signal that the current pace is unsustainable. He realizes that relying on amateur labor for this volume of customers is dangerous. He decides to escalate his own output, preparing to use his blade not as a cooking tool but with the precision of a sword technique to clear the backlog. However, reinforcements arrive before he must exert himself fully. Two figures approach the booth, cutting through the crowd. It is the blonde martial artist and the red-haired assassin, Nox. They are the subordinates from the organization Geomma has entangled himself with. They do not come as customers, acknowledging him as their master. They step into the kitchen to serve as manual labor. The blonde man mocks the new title, but his hands move heavy equipment with ease. Nox takes over the preparations station. With trained warriors handling the logistics, the efficiency of the booth skyrockets. The backlog of hundreds of customers is dismantled with military precision. They work through the sunset, clearing the line until the ingredients are exhausted and the festival day comes to a close. As the crowd disperses and the cleanup begins, Geomma sits on a bench, physically drained. The absurdity of the day settles in. He has defeated a continental master and sold thousands of bowls of stew in the span of a few hours. Nox approaches him as the sun dips below the horizon. The playful demeanor is gone, replaced by the seriousness of his true profession. He delivers a message. The family master wishes to meet Kang Geomma. The implication is heavy. The family master is Altair Auditor, the old man of the mountain, the legendary head of the assassin order. He is a figure who maintains order in the shadows and rarely, if ever, shows interest in outsiders. Geomma deduces the reason immediately. It is likely related to the internal friction with the elders who previously tried to assassinate him, but more importantly, Altair must have watched the duel with Mao Lan. Only a master of that caliber would be able to recognize the use of a domain from a video feed. Nox frames the invitation as a rare honor, expecting Geomma to be intrigued or intimidated. It is a summons from one of the most dangerous men in the world. Geomma stares blankly at his subordinate. He takes a moment to process the request, then delivers his answer. He refuses. Nox is stunned. He asks for a reason, unable to comprehend why anyone would decline such a meeting. Geomma's response is simple and entirely consistent with his nature. He is too lazy, and he is too tired. The politics of the assassin world can wait. He stands up, thanks Nox for the help with the dishes, and walks away, leaving the messenger bewildered in the twilight. The narrative shifts to a high-rise office, far removed from the festival grounds. A woman enters a luxurious room, greeting the figure seated behind the desk. The woman behind the desk is the chairman of the academy. She wears an eye patch and exudes an aura of authority that rivals the masters of the combat world. The instructor calls her Ellie. The pieces of the board are moving. The academy administration, the assassin families, and the noble houses are all turning their gaze toward the cooking booth. The sashimi sword saint has unknowingly declared his presence to the highest powers of the world, all while trying to avoid doing exactly that. The aftermath of the festival's chaos ripples upward, reaching heights far above the student body. In the opulent office of the academy's administration, the silence is heavy, broken only by the tension of an intrusion. An instructor, Ellie, stands before the desk of the headmaster, a woman whose relaxed demeanor belies her terrifying reputation. Ellie's patience has eroded. It has been 5 years since she graduated, yet the atmosphere of this room remains suffocating. She questions the headmaster's presence at the festival, piercing through the pleasantries to the core of the matter. The headmaster did not attend for leisure. She attended to observe a single variable. Kang Geomma, the headmaster, with hair like flowing emeralds and eyes that hold too many secrets, deflects with a smile. She speaks of equality, of treating all cadets the same. But Ellie, perhaps driven by the stress of recent events or the sheer absurdity of the situation, snaps. She demands to know if equality truly applies to an anomaly like Geomma. Her frustration boils over into physical aggression, a lunging strike aimed at the woman behind the desk. It is a mistake. In an instant, the room's gravity seems to invert. A crushing green aura floods the space, slamming Ellie to the floor without the headmaster lifting more than a finger. This is the power of the tyrant, the entity known as Sage, a force that even the elders of the combat world dare not oppose. The hierarchy of power is absolute. Ellie is forced to her knees, gasping under the weight of an overwhelming difference in status. The headmaster's smile never falters, though her eyes sharpen behind her glasses. She reminds her former student of her place. When the pressure recedes, the headmaster offers a glimpse of the truth. She admits that her interest is not standard. To her, Kang Geomma is not merely a cadet. He is something else entirely. She leaves the definition hanging in the air, a mystery that she intends to unravel on her own terms, leaving Ellie alone in the room to catch her breath and contemplate the terrifying scope of the board she is standing on. Meanwhile, on the festival grounds, the subject of their conversation wakes up late. Kang Geomma arrives at the sashimi booth well past the morning rush, unapologetic about his fatigue. The booth, however, has functioned perfectly in his absence. Ryojo Saki and Weapon have managed the front, but the true engine of their success has been Chloe. Geomma observes the results. In just over 2 days, Chloe has adapted her blade work to the kitchen with frightening efficiency. Her knife skills, honed for assassination, have been repurposed for preparation, handling the workload of 50 seconds in mere moments. Geomma recognizes competence when he sees it. He does not offer empty praise. He offers a fair exchange. Recognizing that Chloe desires his company and acknowledging her contribution to the booth, he proposes they walk the festival together during their afternoon break. Chloe's reaction is immediate and radiant. The cold assassin persona vanishes, replaced by the flushed excitement of a young girl. Ryojo Saki watches this exchange from the side, her gaze lingering on Geomma with an unreadable expression. Whether she is analyzing his weapon or his social maneuvering remains ambiguous, but she says nothing. As the sun begins to set, painting the academy in hues of orange and violet, Geomma sits alone on a park bench waiting for the appointed time. The piece is short-lived. An elderly man in a loud, tropical shirt approaches, asking to share the seat. He leans on a wooden cane, complaining about the heat, projecting the air of a harmless, wary traveler. Geomma plays along for exactly 3 sentences. Then, he drops the veil. He identifies the man not as a tourist but as Lord Altair, the patriarch of the Editor family, the head of a legendary assassin lineage. The old man's harmless face head cracks into a sharp, predatory grin. He is impressed. He asks how Geomma saw through the disguise. Geomma glances at the cane. It is not a walking stick. It is a disguise. Rank weapon from the Kane Sword Syndicate, an item notorious among high-level assassins. Geomma claims he recognized the item, but the truth runs deeper. His senses, sharpened by the Murasaim and his own past experiences, felt the intent radiating from the man. Altair shifts the conversation to the personal. He probes Geomma about his relationship with Chloe, asking if they are dating. Geomma denies it with a flat, emotionless just friends. The patriarch laughs, but the humor does not reach his eyes. He pivots to the true purpose of his visit. He did not come to kill Geomma, despite the assassination requests from the elders. He came to warn him. Altair begins to weave a narrative about his granddaughter. He speaks of the Aditor bloodline, describing Chloe as inherently feral, a beast barely contained by reason. He paints a picture of a ticking time bomb, a creature that suppresses its thirst for blood but could snap at any moment and sever the neck of anyone close to her. The imagery is graphic and deliberate, designed to plant a seed of primal fear in Geomma's mind. He insists that for Geomma's own safety, he should distance himself. Geomma listens in silence. He watches the old man's performance. He feels the flow of information through his instincts. And he realizes something crucial. The old man is lying. It is a sophisticated manipulation. Altair is mixing truth with fabrication to isolate Chloe, likely to protect her or control her path by driving away anyone who gets too close. He is sabotaging her chance at a normal life to keep her within the family's shadow. Geomma stands up. He looks down at the legendary assassin and tells him to stop the act. The blatant disrespect stuns the patriarch. Geomma's voice is devoid of fear. He criticizes the old man's technique, stating that if he wanted to deceive him, he should have hidden the lies better. Tension explodes. The harmless old man vanishes, replaced by a grandmaster radiating killing intent. Geomma does not flinch. His hand hovers near his own concealed blade. He looks the patriarch in the eye and delivers a crushing verdict. You were below expectations. Geomma explains nothing further. He has judged the grandmaster and found him wanting. The manipulation was cheap, and the intent was disgusting. He has no patience for an old man who would demonize his own granddaughter to maintain control. Before violence can erupt, footsteps approach. The pressure vanishes instantly. Altair disappears into the shadows as if he never existed. Chloe runs up to the bench, breathless and apologetic for being late. She is dressed in casual clothes, smiling, holding a stuffed toy, looking nothing like the feral beast her grandfather described. She looks like a normal girl hoping for a pleasant evening. Geomma looks at the empty space where the patriarch sat, then turns his gaze to Chloe. The warning rings hollow in his ears. He does not see a monster. He sees a capable subordinate and a companion who earned her place. With a calm affirmation, he accepts her apology, dismissing the shadows of the Editor family. The festival continues, and the sashimi swordmaster walks forward, indifferent to the machinations of the powerful figures watching his every step. The patriarch of the Aditor family remains frozen in the aftermath of the encounter. His breath comes in shallow. Rag gasps as he watches the back of the student walking away. The terrifying pressure that crushed the surroundings has vanished, but the psychological scar remains. The old man analyzes what just occurred. He notes the boy's insight, sharp enough to identify assassins disguised as ordinary passers-by. He recalls the sheer audacity required to stand before a grandmaster without flinching. But most terrifying was the speed of the boy's decision-making. Kang Geomma did not just survive the patriarch's mental projection. He judged it, dismissed it, and counterattacked instantly. The old man admits a chilling truth to the empty air. He is not merely intrigued by this student, he is frightened. He acknowledges that calling Kang Geomma a mere genius would be an insult. This is something else entirely. A figure emerges from the shadows. It is Nox, the family's red-haired enforcer. He approaches his master, asking if the long journey was worth the effort. The patriarch's trembling ceases, replaced by a twisted satisfaction. He tells his subordinate that for the first time in his life, he has felt true fear toward another being. The humiliation of being looked down upon by a teenager is eclipsed by the thrill of discovering a predator that transcends the established hierarchy. He expresses a dark desire to meet the boy again soon. Meanwhile, Geomma returns his attention to the immediate reality. Chloe approaches, unaware of the deadly standoff that just concluded. She asks if anything happened while she was gone. Geomma lies without hesitation. He tells her nothing happened. He sees no reason to burden a subordinate with the complex machinations of her psychotic family during the festival. Chloe, relieved, points out that they have time before the evening fireworks and suggests they wander the festival grounds. They walk through the academy streets as the sun begins to set. Chloe is in high spirits, purchasing a pair of red bunny ears and dragging Geomma toward the attractions. Geomma follows silently. Eventually they find a quiet bench overlooking the city. Geomma sits heavily, letting out a sigh. The mental toll of suppressing an assassin grandmaster has fatigued him more than he admits. Chloe misinterprets his silence. Her excitement fades, replaced by insecurity. She asks if he is tired because of her. Geomma denies this immediately. He looks at the girl next to him. She is apologizing for her performance at the cooking booth, believing she was not proficient enough at preparing ingredients. Geomma corrects her assessment. He states plainly that without her managing the pot and handling the logistics while he fought off competitors, the booth would have failed. He places a hand on her head, offering a rare gesture of validation. He tells her she did good work. Chloe's face turns crimson. The casual praise from the person she admires overwhelms her. She stammers a thank you. The atmosphere shifts. Chloe clutches her hands together, gathering her courage. She turns to Geomma, preparing to ask him something personal. Her moment is shattered by a loud voice calling out to them. Weapon, accompanied by Isaki and other classmates, marches toward them. Chloe freezes, her romantic tension instantly replaced by shock. He asks about the weapon, referencing a text message. Geomma is confused. More students arrive, including Ryojosaki. The group claims they received a text from Geomma instructing everyone to meet at this location at 5 o'clock. Geomma checks his phone. He did not send any such message. He scans the group and locks eyes with Ryojosaki, who is sticking her tongue out in a playful, guilty expression. He realizes immediately that his phone was hacked. The gathering was orchestrated by Saki, likely to prevent him from spending the evening alone with Chloe. The group moves toward the parade, dragging a disappointed Chloe with them. Geomma lingers behind. He claims he is not good with crowds. He watches his classmates walk away, observing the distance between himself and them. He sits back down on the bench, alone in the middle of the festive noise. Geomma observes Chloe in the distance. Seeing that she has recovered her smile and is enjoying the parade, he feels a sense of relief that she is happy, but he feels no urge to join her. A couple walks past him, holding hands and sharing an intimate moment. Geomma watches them with a blank expression. He feels entirely out of place in this atmosphere of romance and youth. He reflects on his past life. As a chef, he was always too busy working in the kitchen to consider love. In this life, he only ever held affection for video game characters. He wonders if he is even capable of feeling such an emotion toward a real person. Since entering the academy 3 months ago, he has been forced to risk his life repeatedly. There has been no time for introspection. He realizes he has been on edge, constantly scanning for threats rather than living. His solitude is interrupted. Ryojosaki sits down on the other end of the bench. She complains that her legs are tired. Geomma glances at her. He analyzes her not as a girl, but as a variable. She is one of the main heroines of the game. She is a ranged character he used frequently in his previous gameplay runs. Despite his familiarity with her stats, he finds her personality difficult to read. He trusts her intellect, so he assumes there must be a strategic reason why she hacked his phone to gather everyone here. Saki sips her drink and mutters that he is an idiot. Geomma hears her and asks what is wrong. Saki flinches, realizing he heard the insult. She looks away, blushing. Geomma's patience wears thin. He turns to her, gripping her shoulders firmly. He demands to know the reason for her actions. He asks why she hacked his phone and brought the group to this specific location. Saki misunderstands the situation completely. His sudden intensity and physical contact cause her to panic. Her face flushes a deep red. She assumes he is making a romantic advance or asking about her feelings. She stammers, asking if this is about the instructor. She complains that his grip hurts. Geomma releases her immediately. He stares at his own hand, wondering if he used too much force. He is completely oblivious to the romantic misunderstanding. He simply wanted a logical answer. Saki rubs her shoulders, asking why he is so aggressive when he is usually so dense. She shouts that the situation is not what he is thinking. Geomma pauses. He decides to be direct. If she is acting strange, he needs to identify the variable causing the behavior. He looks Saki in the eyes and addresses her by name. He tells her he knows it is sudden. Saki tenses up, her heart racing. She prepares herself for a confession. Thinking he is about to declare his feelings, she mentally prepares to tell him she is not ready. Geomma asks his question. Is there a guy you like or something? Saki's anticipation crashes into confusion. She stares at him, her brain failing to process the sheer density of the question. The sashimi sword master awaits her answer, treating the conversation like a tactical debriefing, completely unaware that he has just destroyed the mood of the entire evening. And that brings us to the end of this journey, leaving Kang Geomma at the center of a world shaping storm he never intended to lead. Thank you for following this series with us here at Mythic Manhwa Recaps. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to like, subscribe, and let us know your favorite moment in the comments.